All right, everybody, welcome back. We are diving deep into the fascinating world of corn snake genetics today.
Sounds scaly.
It is pretty scaly, but trust me, it's going to be really interesting.
All right, I'm game.
Our main source material is Genetics Simplified by Brian Lobsher. It's a fantastic guide.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it breaks down complex concepts into really understandable terms, even using this cool superhero analogy.
Superheroes and snakes, what's not to like?
Right, I know. So, like, have you ever looked at a corn snake, like, with all its crazy colors and patterns, and wondered how breeders create those looks?
I definitely have.
The secret lies in their genes.
Genes are like the instruction manual for a snake.
You mean like a blueprint?
Exactly. They determine all the traits you see, the colors, the patterns, everything.
So, like, one snake might have instructions for a classic black and orange pattern.
Right. And another might have instructions for a bright red with white stripes, or even an albino with no pigment at all.
That's wild. Okay, so we're talking about genes like the basic instructions. But what about these terms homozygous and heterozygous that Laubscher keeps using?
Those are important when we're talking about specific traits.
So homozygous means...
Homozygous means the snake got the same instruction for a trait from both parents, two identical copies of the gene.
Okay, like two copies of the gene for a red color.
Precisely in that case, the snake would be homozygous for the red trait.
Makes sense. And what about heterozygous?
Heterozygous is when a snake gets two different instructions for the same trait, one from each parent.
So like one gene for red and one gene for brown.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. So that brings us to alleles.
Right? Alleles are basically different versions of the same gene.
So like different shades of a color.
You got it. Think of it like different outfits for the same superhero.
I like that.
So the gene is like the general concept of color, and the alleles are the specific shades like red, brown, orange, you name it.
This is making a lot more sense now.
It's all about how these alleles combine.
And that determines how the snake looks.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so Lobsher talks about something called Punnett squares, too.
Ah, yes. Punnett squares are like a window into the future of snake babies.
How so?
They're a tool we use to predict the possible genetic combinations of offspring based on the parent's genes.
Okay, so like if we know the parents' genotypes, we can use a Punnett square to see what traits their babies might have.
Exactly. Let's say you have a red corn snake that's homozygous for red, meaning it has two copies of the red allele, which we'd write as RR.
R for red, okay.
And then you breed it with a normal colored snake that's homozygous for the normal pattern. We'll call that NN.
Okay, got it.
The Punnett square would show you that all of their offspring would inherit one R allele and one N allele from their parents, making them heterozygous for that trait, or RN.
But wouldn't that mean all the babies would be red because they got the R allele from the red parent?
That's where dominant and recessive alleles come into play.
Oh, right. I forgot about those.
In this case, the normal allele is dominant, meaning it will mask the expression of the red allele.
So even though the babies have the gene for red color, they won't actually be red.
They'll appear normal, but they still carry that hidden red gene.
Wow, that's crazy.
And this is how breeders can create new and exciting color morphs by selectively breeding snakes with different combinations of dominant and recessive genes.
So they can kind of predict what the babies will look like based on the parents' genes.
Exactly. And this understanding of genetics isn't just valuable for breeders.
It's also important for conservation efforts, right?
Absolutely. Knowing the genetic makeup of wild populations helps us assess their diversity and identify potential vulnerabilities, which is crucial for protecting endangered species.
That makes a lot of sense.
And corn snakes have actually become a valuable model organism in scientific research, helping us understand complex biological processes and diseases.
That's amazing. So these snakes aren't just pretty to look at, they're contributing to important scientific discoveries.
It's true, they've helped unlock secrets about how genes influence various traits, not just in snakes, but in other organisms too.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today, from genes as blueprints to homozygous and heterozygous alleles, Punnett squares, and even the wider implications of corn snake genetics.
It's all interconnected.
And it really highlights the complexity of the natural world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who knew there was so much going on behind those stunning colors and patterns?
It's a reminder that there's always more to learn and discover, even in something as seemingly simple as a corn snake.
So true. And you know what I'm thinking now?
What's that?
Well, we've been talking about how breeders use genetics to create certain looks. But what about the ethics of that? You know, like, is there a point where we're manipulating nature too much?
That's a really good question, and it's something that's definitely being debated in the reptile community. There are concerns about creating morphs that might have health problems or that wouldn't survive in the wild.
So it's important to consider those ethical implications as we learn more and more about genetics and what we can do with that knowledge.
It definitely is, we have a responsibility to use this knowledge wisely and with respect for the animals involved.
I agree, so much to think about.
Yeah, there's always more to uncover.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of corn snake genetics. But as we've learned, there's a lot more to explore.
Keep those questions coming.
Absolutely. And if you're feeling inspired to learn more, definitely check out Genetics Simplified by Brian Labsher. It's an amazing resource for anyone who wants to delve deeper into this fascinating subject.
It's a great read.
Until next time, keep on learning.
Happy herping, everyone.
All right, see ya.